Hello and welcome to Holistic Language today. So if you are in my free Facebook group in the Spiritual Arts, a Safe Place to Be All of You Facebook group, then you saw the live that went up, I guess it'll be yesterday, or maybe you were there, and the topic of that video was sort of holistic language, and then sort of how that group name came to be between a merge of martial arts and language arts. And as I transmitted that live, I realized, let's go into this even more. Let's do a continuation, a follow-up of holistic language on YouTube and the blog down below. And so here we are. And so holistic language is looking at language from the perspective of communication rather than looking at it as this is native language, this is foreign language, this is Spanish, English, French, Japanese, Arabic, whatever the language. And also including other modalities of communication and expression in other languages that sometimes we leave out, like sign language, like reading Braille, like all of these other ways we communicate, and like body language, expression, art as language, poetry as language, which is language, but as a different means of communication. So really opening our minds to how is language communication and expression, rather than just, man, how do I learn this language and be able to talk to people? This is the difference between being able to speak a language and being able to communicate and express yourself and be understood in the way that you desire to by the other person, which is a skill that a lot of people just have not developed yet. And as a teacher especially, I learned that, a lot of people struggle with this skill. I myself have struggled with this skill, and that's why I'm here talking about it today, because it's something I've spent a lot of time on just practicing and learning, and I'd like to go even deeper into today. And so looking at communication language this way, it's holistic language. We have this umbrella of language, and language from each of those perspectives, right? So we know the foreign and native language element. What we don't talk about quite as much, and even in school, in language learning, in school we have language learning, like native language classes, which are like developing reading, writing, listening, speaking skills, and then we have foreign language classes, which are learning that target language. And funnily enough, the English as a second language classes are not structured at all the same way as the foreign language classes. It's really interesting, actually. And I know that that's because it's a different, I'm noticing things in the garden while I'm out here, ooh, what's this? Being distracted. But I know that is also because we're here, in the country. It's more of an immersion experience. But even being a person who has gone to another country to study that foreign language, it's taught differently. So that's a topic for another day. But holistic language. So we have those language pieces. We have native language, foreign language. They're taught differently in the school system. I think we can agree on that. We have a language in the online space. We have the polyglot community. I don't know why this is my gesture, but it is. We have the polyglot community, and then we have the, let's say, neuro-linguistic programming community. And those are and then we have the linguist community, which ironically enough is not like really connected to neurolinguistic programming. And then there's like the bilingual community, which is like its own niche. Like everything is so separated. And I get that it's useful to separate these topics into their components so that we can be more direct to communicate and to find information, especially online. Like, okay, well, I can't just search for give me everything about language. Like, I have to have specificity, but also I have to understand that it is all connected. I have to have both. I have to have that specificity of, okay, language is each of those things I mentioned. Language is native language, foreign language. There's the polyglot community learning, multiple languages. There's each language individually, each of the language teachers, that I can find online or anywhere. And then there's like neuro-linguistic programming, which is like psychology and linguistics overlap. And then there's light language, which is the woo-woo language. And there's so many others, right? So just looking at these language pieces, how can we both have specificity to understand that, okay, I need to focus so that I can actually learn something because that is necessary, but also how can I expand my mind so that I am open to other opportunities and understandings that I'm not even aware of exist yet. This is that's the overlap, right? And that's holistic language. So holistic language is having all of those components and more, and then having that overarching theme of this is all connected. All of this is going to move me forward. Let's look at neuro-linguistic programming specifically, since that is an area that I have been studying, practicing quite a bit recently. And so neuro-linguistic programming is not even like linguistics, like a lot of the people who study linguistics, it's linguistics and psychology. I mentioned it's that overlap. And linguistics is a cool topic because it has so many of those overlaps. Like it has an overlap with computational, like with computer programming. It has an overlap with psychology. It has an overlap with like anthropology, like how language has evolved over the years and in different cultures. Like there's so many, and it's kind of like mind-blowing when you think about, I'm going to be specific and do this one thing, but also I'm going to be specific because I'm going to do multiple things, and that also makes me specific. So bear with me here. If you're like, what? Okay, so 2 ways that you can be specific, and then we'll go back to neuro-linguistic programming, is I'm studying Spanish. Okay, cool. What about it? Oh, I want to learn how to speak it. Okay. If you really, really, really go into it, even like a topic like Spanish, like choosing a language, you go into it and you're like, okay. When you go really in depth, you look at dialects, you look at different countries, you look at the literature. You look at literature, oh, okay, what kind of literature? Oh, Latin American literature. What kind of Latin American literature? Oh, literature from Argentina. Okay, from what era? And the 1800s. When? The late 1800s. When? The last decade of the 1800s. Like, it's so specific. And then like, okay, well, that literature, and maybe, there wasn't as much literature then, so maybe we go in like 1900s at some point. But you get the point, which is that even when you choose something that's seemingly simple, it's like, oh, this is done. There's more within that. And then within that is also branching out into other topics like history, like the culture, like the countries, the origins, accents, like everything that is in there, that is also more than just language as we usually see it, and different modes of expression, literature, okay, novels, poetry, what else? How else do people communicate? How did they speak? How did how they speak influence how they wrote? How did how their society was at that time influence how they wrote? What was the perspective, the mindset of the person who was writing? What was the technological state at that time? Like, what was invented? What was the progress of society in that era? How did that affect their understanding of the world and how they wrote? So see how something like, Spanish now is big, but also specific, because it's focused on, Spanish at this time, and then I'm going to look at what did this time look like, and it's very explorative. So neurolinguistic programming teaches us how to think this way, teaches us how to teach ourselves to think this way. And what it does is we can rewire our brains, like full on rewire them. We get to choose. It teaches us that we have the power to choose how we think and who we are and what our mindset is and how we can overcome challenges and who we get to be and how we choose to live our lives. And it does this because of that psychology aspect of linguistics and psychology. And so with neurolinguistic programming, we look at language as thoughts, right? Our thought patterns. We look at language in the sense of how we think and express. And then we go even deeper into our mind, into subconscious language. We go into the past, we go into, I have this habit and I want to change this habit. When was the first time that I experienced doing this habit? Maybe this was in my childhood. Let me think back. Where did I learn this? How have I learned that this is a good thing for me to do? How am I going to overcome this gradually? How am I going to shift? And there's so many techniques, that we use to, let me try this, let me try this, let me try this. Let me understand it, and then let me shift it. We have, what's the word for it? We have difficulty overcoming obstacles, like believing that we can speak confidently. For example, I want to become a better speaker. Well, how do I speak now? How do I express myself? How do I become more confident? So something like, I want to be a fluent speaker, be able to communicate confidently in a foreign language, goes back to how well do you do in your native language? Remembering those skills transfer and going back into the self. How confident are you in yourself, with yourself? Well, I'm kind of confident, but sometimes I'm not. Well, this is like a dialogue you can have with yourself, or if I were working with someone that I would potentially lead someone through, and say, I'm kind of confident with myself, but not always. Well, what are some of those situations where you're not? Well, when I have to actually speak to people, sometimes I feel like I freeze up and I don't know what to say. What does this feel like in your body when this happens? Well, it feels like I'm just shut off, like I just can't speak, and it feels like just a closedness in my throat. Let's sit with that and let's go back onto, thinking about, let's go back. What is the earliest memory that you have where you felt this way? Okay, well, I remember when I was a kid and I said something, I was voicing my opinion, and then I was told not to. I was told, hey, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't think like that. That's not okay. Okay. Would you say that really affected you, that hit you strong, that hit you hard? Yeah, okay. Do you want to go deeper into this? And then from there, using language patterns and even hypnotherapy, which is a branch of neuro-linguistic programming, we can go into the subconscious. We can go in and we can see where these challenges that we have now originated, and we can reprogram the brain so that you are more confident, so that you do feel like you can express yourself with more ease, so that it becomes a part of you. And this is not like, oh, learn this, do this thing, and then you're done. This is like, no, we're going to go in and we're going to bring up past, we're going to bring up memories, we're going to bring up things that maybe are uncomfortable, and we're going to work through them. And you're going to develop that inner strength that will last a lifetime to become this version of yourself that you desire to be. And it takes that. It gives you that confidence and that strength, but that's what it takes, is to go in and to do that rewiring, not just in your brain, but to feel it in your body, to be able to like stand and be like, yes, I'm going to express, I'm going to speak, I'm going to be myself. And it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen like in a session. It happens gradually. And there are shifts, like noticeable shifts that you can see within, say, a session, or within a week, or within a couple weeks. And it's a bit like going to therapy, where you go and you don't just like go to a therapist and then be like, here's all my problems, fix them. And then they say, okay, poof, here's some like fairy dust. Here you go. You're all better now. It doesn't work that way. And it is, but it does, what it does do is it compounds, right? You continue, you go deeper in and deeper in and deeper in, and then the more you go in to your head, to your body, into this improvement, the more quickly you are able to make more shifts. So once you develop that skill to make those shifts, you then can actually make the shifts more quickly. But the initial process is like, okay, well, let's actually first see what we're working with. And so that is neuro-linguistic programming, and going into the mind, into the conscious, into the subconscious, connecting it with the body, and part of language. And also everything I'm doing here, like language, communication, it's not only spoken, right? It is spoken, but it's felt like body language. How am I standing? How am I, using gestures? How am I speaking? How am I speaking? Am I speaking like way up here in my head? Am I speaking like I'm like grounded and I'm speaking from my diaphragm and I'm speaking like how I feel? What kind of language am I using? Am I stopping? Am I saying like? Am I saying Am I thinking? There's so many intricacies that it's not actually possible to list them all in this video. So I won't. But there is a blog post that is down below where you can learn a bit more, and you're welcome to come join the Facebook group as well. And that has a video that came out before this, and then I'm live in there each week, so you can come and talk to me in a live video if you'd like to. And that is it. I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, guys.